Welcome back to My Dad Watches The Bachelor. I'm Meredith, and I'm here with my co-host, my dad.
Hey, Meredith, how are you and your dog doing today? Your dog seems to be very excited about the podcast.
Yeah, I've actually got two co-hosts today, here with my dad and my puppy. And my puppy has gotten neutered recently, so he's on a lot of drugs.
That's the way we like our pets, drugged up. But speaking of drugs, we got to watch the show last night.
Speaking of drugs, that was a good segue. I think I enjoyed last night's episode for the most part because there was some like funny, awkward moments.
Yeah, and I don't know. I thought it was a little bit dull, a little bit slow, but better than the previous week. I thought it picked up a little bit. But you know, the big storyline is that our hero Zach had the COVID.
He sure did. And the big question is, how did none of the other women get the COVID?
That is a question, and I don't know if it's a highlight or low light, but it seems to me the day after his one-on-one date with Gabby, which seemed to go very well, you know, and there was some smooching and whatnot. The next day he cancels on his group date because he's not feeling so well. And two things struck me. You know, every time I cough these days, it's like, oh my gosh, do I have COVID? And nobody seems to think, oh, I hope he doesn't have COVID, or they cut that out of it for dramatic effect. I don't know. But no one even mentions the chance that poor Zach might have COVID. And number two, the organization I work for has pretty firm guidelines that if you've been around someone with COVID, you can come to work, but you have to wear a mask for 5 days. And we're seeing Gabby, she's with the group, doesn't seem to be bothering her or anything, not to mention any other interaction any of these ladies might have had with Zach. So it just seemed rather strange.
Yeah, Jesse Palmer walks in. He's like, what are we going to do? Zach has COVID. It's like, Jesse, what we're going to do? We're going to test all these women for COVID too. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get Gabby out of here. So it makes sense, maybe the other women haven't seen him since the last rose ceremony, but Gabby was macking on him last night. We got to get her out of here.
And it didn't look like they got her out of there.
Yeah, no such thing happened. I guess, Gabby maybe has a super immune system.
Or maybe next week. Well, we didn't see anything in the previews that seemed to indicate that we've got the COVID going through the cast or whatnot.
Yeah, I will say it seems pretty lucky. Like, this seems like best case scenario for your lead having COVID, is that it's just your lead, no one else gets it. Because I feel like this thing should be spreading like wildfire.
Well, I don't know if we call that a highlight, a low light, or what we call it, but what highlights did you have from last night's show?
I enjoyed Gabby's royal date. It looked pretty fun. There's butlers, perfume making, corgis, trying on dresses. I think the pretty woman date in general always looks like it would be fun. And I also thought it was funny watching Gabby unpack all of her clothes and jewelry and shoes in front of the hateful glares of all the other women.
So I guess I'm not as big on the whole royal dating type thing. I mean, I guess I'm at a point in life where I'm more into comfort than perfumery and fancy clothes and everything. So the date didn't do that much for me, and I guess I found myself trying to figure out which of these royals was most likely to have been the one to give COVID to Zach. It's sort of like, Clue. Was it the butler? Was it the chauffeur? Was it the perfumist?
It's got to be the perfumist. That guy had to sit there while Gabby and Zach were like shit talking his lifelong work, being like, oh yeah, this one smells like Christmas mixed with weed.
Well, I will say as a highlight, I enjoy Gabby's wit and sense of humor, and I think the perfumist was saying this one has a sensual wood type thing, and Gabby's sort of saying, "Oh yeah, I enjoy a sensual woody," and like Zach and Gabby are both sort of cracking up, uh, and she just seems fun. She seems fun to be with. I put her in the lead at this point in time.
Yeah, I like Gabby too. I don't think she's gonna win. I think Zach wants someone a bit quieter, more submissive. I was surprised he was laughing at the sensual wood jokes.
Well, I enjoyed it. I mean, I too many of these people come on the show, and it's like, oh, I'm just so excited to be here. Yeah, so you're so wonderful, you're so great, and she seems to sit back a little bit and just take a few shots here and there, and I enjoyed that.
I also enjoyed when Greer had her meltdown while like Gabby was showing everyone her clothes and shoes, and she runs out and she's crying and she's getting like a pep talk in the hallway, talking about her feelings, and Gabby has to step over her with all of her bags, not once but twice, while she's crying about Gabby getting the date. I thought that
Well,
was just it was gold.
I, I, I think that you're being pretty mean right now. But anyway, I thought that Greer, it was sort of funny that Greer is having her meltdown right at Gabby's door. And it's like, oh, excuse me, you're going to have to move so I can get into my room with all my treasures
Mhm.
here. So,
I don't
yeah,
feel
that
bad
was
for Greer. I'll get into that in a bit, but I, I have little sympathy there.
any other highlights for you?
I did enjoy the Greer and Mercedes beer chugging contest during the group date. Thought that was pretty impressive.
And I enjoyed the barkeep who she's I think she called herself a boozer. She says it's my boozer and I'm a nosy cow, and starts interrogating the ladies about why all these young ladies are at the bar without any male companionship.
Mm. What are your highs?
That was about it.
Oh,
That was the bar scene. I like the chauffeur with the funny hat. I wish I had a chauffeur that could tell my lady that it's time for the date and drive me around in a Rolls Royce. I think that was sort of nice. Um, uh, I also enjoyed the bar. I appreciated the fact that it's that uh, at some point the ladies who seem miserable pretty much the whole time riding around in a double decker bus without Zach in London, yeah, they with help from some beer seemed to be cheering up a bit when they got to the bar there.
yeah. I'm glad that they weren't so complainy and whiny the whole time.
Yeah, they were pretty miserable most of the day.
Yeah, that was one of my lows. The girls being grumpy that Zach is sick for the group date. Like, he obviously can't control it. Like, you're still in London. Go enjoy yourself. It's
That's
not
sort
like
of what
you were
I
going to
thought.
spend that much time with him during the day, anyways.
Yeah, that's sort of what I thought. I mean, these girls all seem so miserable just because Zach isn't there. How many girls are on the group date? Like 10? I don't know. I mean, a good number, and you know, Zach seems like a really good guy, but come on, you're in London.
Yeah.
Try to
And they're
try to
like,
enjoy
oh, this
yourself a
day's
bit.
so terrible. Zach's sick. And it gets even worse. It starts raining on us. And it's like, welcome to London.
I guess they didn't have access to the lower portion of the double decker bus.
No, we got to let the girls sit in the rain.
So
So, a big low for me. Greer is crying because she didn't get Gabby's one on one date, even though it was like, quote unquote, her personality to a T. And she's apparently told Zach recently that drinking tea and tea is like a big part of her personality. She has a tattoo of it. And I'm assuming she was talking about the tea drinking aspect of the date. I don't really remember them drinking tea though. And she's just like assuming they're drinking tea, but she's like so upset because this should have been her date if Zach knew anything about her. And it seems very shallow to me to be saying that when this is the date where you get spoiled and have everything bought for you. And she's like so upset because this was like the date for her personality. It just doesn't seem like a good look for me. It's like, oh, shouldn't Zach know that I'm the spoiled brat that deserves all the stuff bought for me?
Well, Greer is one of the younger people, maybe the youngest person on the show. There might be another 24-year-old as well,
Jess
but
is
she's one of
also
the
pretty
younger people.
young.
But she did come on. The whole episode did make me question her maturity level and whether she's ready to actually get married. And um, the show, for the most part, wasn't a good look for Greer, and it felt like she should have been sent home at the end. But she's still with us.
I get that Greer is upset that she got the first impression rose and has not gotten a one-on-one date yet. But just the way that she's making it sound like, oh, this date was my personality is it seems very shallow.
Well, a couple of woes for me was I guess I help me understand the whole royal corgi situation. I mean, what's so royal about these corgis? They're doing the one-on-one date with Gabby, and it's the royal treatment, and here come the royal corgis. What makes them so special?
I think
Are they
it's
all inbred? Are they all inbred corgis?
I
What?
think it's well known that Queen Elizabeth has a lot of corgis. But I
I
mean,
was I was not aware of this.
are they Queen Elizabeth's corgis? Are they in the bloodline? I don't really know. But it's just, it's some British corgis.
Yeah, that I didn't know where that was coming from. I'm not a big perfumery person. So I didn't find that to be very useful. Other than Zach and Gabby sort of sitting back and making wise ass remarks about it, and you know I'm accustomed on the musical guests that we have to see new up and coming acts that I've not heard of before, and usually I'm enjoy them. And the musical act that we had this week was UB40, who I've heard of before. They were singing "I Can't Help But Falling in Love with You" and their reggae version. I don't like a reggae version of that song. It's a lovely song, but you shouldn't be doing it in reggae. That's what they do, and it just felt like if you're UB40 and now you're doing The Bachelor, I don't think your career arc is going well.
I've never heard of UB40.
Red Red Wine.
Oh, I know that song.
That's UB40.
They should have sang that song.
No, I think there might be UB60 now. I think they're probably older.
Speaking of like Queen stuff like we were before, do we think that the Queen's death has any correlation to the Bachelor filming in London? Do you think she did die before this happened, but do you think she's like, I gotta leave before this is coming to my country? I don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah, I see where you're going there. I don't think we want to. Yeah, we can blame The Bachelor for the demise of many social values and whatnot, but I don't think we want to put the Queen's death on this one. So that's probably a step too far.
I'm not so sure. Poor Queenie.
Yeah, well,
she could still be here if it weren't for Zach.
May she rest in peace. She lived a good long life.
Karma got Zach though with the COVID, so it all works out. But speaking of the COVID, let's get into a lot of my lows. I feel like I have PTSD from this virtual cocktail party and rose ceremony. I feel like we're in the heart of 2020 again. We're all Zooming each other, like Zoom happy hour, Zoom everything. It was a big low for me, although it was interesting to see Zach like setting up all of his tech for it. I'm curious like how long that would have taken and how many like IT people are like, no, Zach, plug this in here.
Yeah. I mean, we have a camera with Zach sort of setting up lights and cameras and everything. So, I mean, I guess they're sort of leaving stuff outside his door and saying, here, take it, and we'll tell you what to do. And he could have used some tech support there.
Yeah. And then there were two uncomfortable conversations that he had during the cocktail party. One was more uncomfortable for me with Catherine, aka Kat. she did not know the word snog, and she kept calling it snug. And she's like, Zach, did you learn any English words? I learned the word snug. It means kissing. And Zach keeps trying to correct her and be like, snog, snog. And she just keeps calling it snugging. And I think snog is a pretty basic English word that most people know. So I was very disappointed in Catherine.
Okay. I was not familiar with that, but okay.
And then, secondly, very uncomfortable conversation between Greer and Zach about her understanding of what he's going through because she had COVID at the end of a sales quarter and felt like she was missing a lot of work and that like stressed her out. And I think Zach was like pretty rude to her in the conversation. He's like, well, actually, that's really not the same at all. Like, I'm here trying to find my wife in a few weeks. I don't really appreciate you comparing that to the end of your sales quarter. And I think that Greer's just trying to like relate to him and be like, I understand. Like, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Something similar has happened to me. And Zach's just kind of like, fuck you. That's not what's going on at all. He was really rude.
Yeah, I thought he was a little over the top there as well, and yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not exactly the same thing, but she's trying to empathize with you, and you just basically said no, I'm giving you the back of my hand, and obviously it continued Greer's spiral toward I've offended him, I've insulted him, and I'm going home, um, and she gets the very last rose, and I think we're surprised that she's still with the show.
Yeah, I'm not sure she's going to be getting a one-on-one date. I could see her leaving next week. It seems
Well,
like if Zach liked her, he would not have been as like rude and dismissive to her in that conversation.
and he seemed to have a nicer conversation with was it Kylie?
Yeah, with Kylie.
Uh,
He even said
yeah,
something about how he really enjoyed talking to Kylie.
yeah. So and it's not like Kylie's really distinguished herself during the season, but my sense was Kylie would get the rose and get to stay, and Greer would be going home. But I Uh, Kylie was one of your picks, but I think Greer is going to join her on the flight back to the USA shortly.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Greer staying is has anything to do with the producers, and they know that she's just spiraling, and like if they continue to not give her a date, like it'll just get worse next week.
Fingers crossed.
Do you have any
Um,
other lows?
well, it sort of bugged me. Katie goes and knocks on Zach's door when he's got the COVID and has this long conversation with him through their door and leaves him souvenirs um, and if I'm sick, it's like hey, I just want to sleep. Don't be bugging me. I guess he's not that sick. I guess he's hopefully has a mild case of COVID and seems pretty good. But um, I'm more like, hey, I'm going to lie in the bed, watch some TV, and don't bug me so much, Katie. Come on, leave me alone.
Yeah, I did. I did pick up on that too. I think, when I had COVID, if someone was sitting outside my bedroom door talking about their feelings and looking for validation from me, I think I'd be pretty annoyed and wouldn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah. So that bugged me a little bit.
Is that your only other low?
That was we touched on my lows.
Okay, well then that kind of takes me into the right reason because although like I wouldn't want to be validating someone's feelings while I had COVID, I gave Katie the right reason because she's the only one that we saw that seemed to really care that much that Zach was sick. Everyone else seemed to really care about how it impacted themselves and she made Zach a get well soon basket, took it to his room, had a little chat with him outside the door. Thought it was very sweet and considerate to think about how he was feeling, not just how the women were feeling about it.
I think that's a good call. For right reason, I went with Gabby again, just because I really thought they had a good date. I really enjoyed her sense of humor and they just seemed very comfortable with one another. Um, I don't know if she'll be the last person standing or not, but I think Zach would be pretty fortunate to end up with her.
Yeah, I think she's too cool for him.
What
Next,
about your what about your wrong reason?
my wrong reason is going to the producers for letting the women get all dressed up for the group date cocktail party when I'm sure they already knew that Zach would not be attending.
Yeah, that was sort of disappointing. I texted you in that up until that point we had not seen our friend Jesse Palmer, and I was hoping for a Jesse Palmer free episode, but we were denied that. Uh, for wrong reason, I put the virtual rose ceremony in that, which maybe that goes back to the producers. Although it seems to me that Zach could have stood up and said, "Look, I'm sick. I don't really feel it's right to send somebody home this week. Let's drag them all along to our next location, and I'll give we'll have an extra bloody rose ceremony." But sending someone home virtually just felt colder than it needed to be, and I didn't like that at all. So I'm giving my wrong reason to virtual rose ceremonies.
It was very cold, but I do feel like there's a very big gap in his connections between everyone that stayed versus Kylie and Mercedes. Literally don't know a single thing about Mercedes except that she can chug beer with Greer. But I mean, it was very obvious that Mercedes had to go.
Well, and is there like a Jess? Is Jess one of the people? There's like another person that I don't feel like we've really seen much of.
Yeah, we haven't seen much of Jess, but Zach seems into her. We didn't get to see much Ariel today or last night, but we know Zach is into her as well. And it looks like in the previews we're going to get a one-on-one with Ariel.
Okay. Well, who's your MVP this week?
I give my MVP to Gabby. You know, she's really the only one that got to have a good week in London. And I enjoyed watching her. I thought she's funny and kind of quirky and I think she seems very cool. I would enjoy being friends with her.
No, I think she would be fun to hang out with. I think you're right. So good choice.
Do you have any fatherly advice to wrap us up?
So you mentioned you seem to enjoy the fact that Gabby threw all of her presents and things out in front of the other girls. I didn't like that so much. I don't think you need to show off like that.
I don't think she had a choice.
She was. I don't think she read the room very well, and she seemed to think that everyone would be happy for her. So let's not make other people jealous with that stuff. No need to show off. No showing off. That's not good. Um, Gabby reminds me that a sense of humor goes a long way in a relationship. So as you're finding that special someone, hopefully they can make you laugh. That's a good thing. And finally, it's important that you learn how to make lemonade out of lemons. Zach wasn't on the big group date, and everybody was miserable, and that's not cool. Life's going to throw you some curveballs there. That happens to all of us, and you got to make the best of it. So don't be moping around. Try to find the silver lining. Sometimes beer can help with that, as it did in this show. So anyway, let's make lemonade.
Okay, those are good. Good fatherly advice for the day. Can I
Thank you.
add a layer to the drama of Greer and Gabby that I forgot to mention?
Please.
Greer and Gabby both went to Old Miss. They went to college together and they were in the same sorority together. So they know each other. And I think that just adds another layer of like humor to the whole situation.
Are they the same age?
I don't know if they're the same age, but they were in the same sorority together. And I was actually in the same sorority as them at a different school. And even though like at another large SEC school, and even if you're not the same age, you know of the people in your sorority. They know who each other are. And I think that just adds I think it's funny, makes it funnier. Gabby stepping over Greer with all of her large bags of presents while she's crying.
Okay. Well, you're the expert when it comes to the sorority scene. So I thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Anytime. I'll keep everyone else updated if I find any more fun facts about the women. But we'd like to thank The Mesh for hosting our podcast. And if you like what you're hearing, feel free to give us a 5-star rating and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And join us next week as we discuss more of Zach's season from the right perspective and my dad's.